A good Thursday morning to you. I'm Jim Sciutto. Poppy is off this week. We do begin with breaking news this hour. Right now, closing arguments underway in a Moscow courtroom for the WNBA star Brittany Griner, the two-time Olympic gold medalist who also plays in Russia during the offseason, pleaded guilty to drug charges last month. The prosecutor seeking, though those charges are minor, 9.5 years of jail time. Griner just spoke moments ago. Let's listen.
Видела, как девочки ждали меня, и здесь появились настоящие мои друзья, мои поклонники, с которыми я могла взаимодействовать. Все это заставляло меня возвращаться сюда снова и снова.
I want to apologize to my teammates, my club, Gemka, the fans, and the city of DCAT. My mistake that I made and the embarrassment that I brought onto them.
Я хотела бы извиниться перед моими товарищами по команде, перед клубом, перед поклонниками за ту ошибку, которую я допустила, и за тот позор, который я на них навлекла.
I want to also apologize to my parents, my siblings, my Phoenix Mercury organization back at home, the amazing women of the WNBA, and my amazing spouse back at home.
Я также хочу принести извинения перед своими родителями, своими братьями и сестрами, перед организацией Phoenix Mercury, перед замечательными женщинами женской национальной баскетбольной ассоциации WNBA, а также перед моей прекрасной супругой.
I never meant to hurt anybody. I never meant to put in jeopardy the Russian population. I never meant to break any laws here.
Я ни на секунду никогда не хотела никому навредить, никого обидеть, навредить населению Российской Федерации или нарушить какой-то из законов Российской Федерации.
I made an honest mistake, and I hope that in your ruling that it doesn't end my life here.
Я совершила ошибку, совершенную ошибку, и я надеюсь, что в своем приговоре вы не закончите мою жизнь здесь.
I know everybody keeps talking about political pawn and politics, but I hope that that is far from this courtroom.
Я знаю, что все постоянно разговаривают о таком понятии, как политическая пешка и о политике, но я честно надеюсь, что это понятие далеко от данного суда.
I want to say again that I had no intent on breaking any Russian laws. I had no intent, I did not conspire or plan to commit this crime.
И я хочу повторить еще раз, что у меня не было намерения нарушить какой-либо из законов Российской Федерации. Я не договаривалась и не планировала совершить это действие.
I hope that you take into account all the documents, all the character lists that everybody that sent in on my behalf.
И я надеюсь, что вы также учтете все те документы, характеристики, которые все прислали от моего имени.
Again, I want to apologize to my teammates and the organization, Gemka, for any damage that I may have done to them. I never intended on hurting them. This is my second home, and all I want to do is just win championships and make them proud.
Я также еще раз хочу извиниться перед моими товарищами по команде, перед организацией ВМК. Я никогда не хотела навредить им, и это стало моим вторым домом, для которого я хотела выигрывать новые награды.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Спасибо, Ваша честь.
You've been listening there just moments ago to the comments inside a Russian courtroom of Brittany Griner, the WNBA star, as she awaits sentencing there for drug charges. She said she wanted to apologize to her teammates, fans, siblings, the WNBA. She said she had no intent to commit a crime. She also said, interestingly, she wanted the phrase political pawn to be far from the courtroom. Now we will await what the court decides in terms of her sentencing while negotiations continue for a possible prisoner swap to earn Griner and perhaps other Americans currently held in Russia their freedom. CNN senior international correspondent Frederick Pleitkin is live outside the Moscow courtroom. Also, CNN national security correspondent Kylie Atwood covering. Let's begin with Fred. Fred, what happens from here? How long before we expect to hear a decision on sentencing?
Yeah, we just got word from the court, Jim, that they've, for now, are taking a break, and they expect to be back in, let's say, about an hour 45, maybe an hour and 40 minutes from now. And that's when we can expect a verdict right within that time frame. It could take a while for the court to then establish itself, but that's around the time that we expect a verdict to come down. But a lot really happening today. I mean, we just heard some of those remarkable words there from Brittany Griner that she just did addressing the court. But even as she came into the court earlier today, she immediately held up a picture of the team that she plays for here in Russia, the team of Yekaterinburg. You'll recall that when she took the stand a couple of weeks ago, she said that she wanted to get back to her teammates so badly that she quickly packed her stuff and got on that plane, and that maybe in that haste, she accidentally packed those cartridges, which of course, contained that cannabis oil, at least that according to the prosecution. So Brittany Griner already holding a picture earlier today. The prosecution for its part calling for a very tough sentence, asking for 9.5 years in prison. That's 9 years and 6 months. And on top of that, a fine of about 1 million rubles. I'd say that's about between $16,000 and $17,000. They are saying that there's no doubt that she intended to take the vaping cartridges with cannabis oil in them to Russia. Again, then there was a plea by her defense team, closing arguments by them, and they were then saying that she absolutely didn't mean to take them here. They also believe that there were some procedural errors that were conducted by the authorities when Brittany Griner was apprehended at the airport near Moscow, the Sheremetyevo airport, on February 19th. For instance, she didn't have enough access to a translator. She didn't know some of the documents that she was signing, what exactly they were about. They also called into question some of the analysis that happened as well. A lot of today was also about Brittany Griner's character, though, Jim, where they said, look, Brittany Griner is a model athlete, is someone who's obviously very popular around the world and also very popular here in Russia, and who's done a lot for Yekaterinburg and for Russia. And just because of that, they believe that more leniency should be in order. One of the things that we need to mention, Jim, is that the court, the judge, has a lot of leeway as far as the actual verdict is concerned. The prosecutor asking for 9.5 years. The judge could remain well below that. There is a lot of leeway. We're going to have to wait and see, but we do always have to remind our viewers that Russian courts definitely not known for leniency, Jim.
Thank you, Fred. Kylie, we'd be remiss not to mention the political implications and influences here that Russian courts and trials, they're the Kremlin's desires as well, and they have a history of turning Americans and other foreigners into bargaining chips. What is the status of negotiations? U.S. offers for a prisoner swap. The U.S., as you know, offered to swap the convicted arms smuggler Victor Bout in exchange for her and Paul Whelan. Are those negotiations still ongoing?
Yeah, well, here's the thing, Jim. Today will have a significant impact on those ongoing negotiations. And here's why. U.S. officials have long said that they believe Griner would have to admit guilt, which she did with that guilty plea back in July. And we heard it again today with her reiterating that this was a mistake. She never meant to break Russian law, and that she would also have to have sentencing as part of this trial. And that's what we're expecting will come today before there could be any actual prisoner swap that would come to fruition. But even though U.S. officials expected that both of those things needed to be in hand before a prisoner swap could actually happen, they did put that offer for a deal on the table back in June to try and get the wheels spinning towards that direction. Now, the Russians came back with a counteroffer saying, in addition to Victor Bout, this convicted arms smuggler who is facing a 25-year prison sentence here in the United States, they also wanted another Russian who's serving a life sentence in Germany right now for murder. Now, the Biden administration said that wasn't a serious counteroffer. So the question now is that at the end of today, when this sentence is in, will a serious counteroffer from the Russians come in? And I also think it's important to note that the State Department is watching this incredibly closely, and there isn't really any sort of assumption that there won't be sentencing here because there is a 99% conviction rate in the Russian judicial system. So the question is, now that this is over, can they move forward on these conversations over a prisoner swap? The backdrop, of course, being the fact that Russia is still engaged in this invasion of Ukraine, and the Kremlin may see having Brittany Griner as having leverage over the United States right now. Brittany Griner saying she doesn't want politics to be part of it, but politics are inherently part of this awful situation for her.
No question. Enormous pressure from Russia, given the kinds of people that they are attempting to exchange for Brittany Griner here. We will continue to monitor events from the courtroom. Fred Pleitgen there in Moscow, Kylie Atwood at the State Department. Another story we're following this morning, Korean Air is canceling its flights into Taiwan for the next 2 days because China is firing multiple missiles towards the water very close to the self-ruled and democratic island. The live fire military drills are a response, China says, to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. You can actually hear the drills off the coast. China has called Pelosi's visit, quote, irresponsible and irrational. Taiwan is accusing China of acting like North Korea. There's actually been some bipartisan support here in this country for Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. This morning, Nancy Pelosi's focus on the Korean peninsula. She is in South Korea right now for her latest leg of her trip to Asia. CNN senior international correspondent Will Ripley is in Taiwan. Will, this morning, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said he hopes Beijing will not manufacture a crisis. From Taiwan, do they see this blowing over in the coming days, or do they see a new level of tensions now?
I'm not sure that they are, concerned to the level of like red alert, danger is imminent, but this is extraordinarily troubling. I mean, you just look at the pictures of people who are living here in Taiwan, and they're seeing, those explosions, live fire drills just off the shore, 16 kilometers, some of the sites were that close. I mean, this is a deliberate attempt by China, by Xi Jinping, to intimidate people here in Taiwan, to intimidate the leadership of Taiwan, to try to intimidate the United States, and to see Speaker Pelosi now, potentially traveling to the demilitarized zone. We heard she might be planning to do that. She's in South Korea. I covered that flashpoint, North Korea, South Korea, for many years. And to now be sitting here at yet another flashpoint where you have, once again, missiles flying. It was North Korean missiles that were landing, in Japan's exclusive economic zone. And now, for the first time ever, Japan says that Chinese ballistic missiles have also landed in their exclusive economic zone. So this situation pulls in not only the United States, because Speaker Pelosi was here and China used that as the excuse to start this kind of activity, but now you have Japan worried about their own security with Chinese ballistic missiles landing closer and closer to their island. It's not the kind of dynamic that you want to see evolving out here in a very heavily nuclear armed part of the world. But this is the dynamic that we are in now, where every little thing could trigger something else. And maybe China was going to do this anyway. I mean, clearly these military drill plans didn't just get sprung up overnight. Maybe they would have done it when she was here in April. We have no way of knowing. But they're doing it now. And now it's up to Taiwan, the United States, Japan, and others in the region to figure out what, if any, response there's going to be.
That's right. And it is China, by the way, firing those missiles, right? Will Ripley, thanks very much.
Yep.
First on CNN, the Justice Department has now subpoenaed former Deputy Trump White House counsel Patrick Philbin, part of its ongoing investigation, criminal investigation, into the January 6th attack on the Capitol. This comes just a day after we learned the federal grand jury has also subpoenaed his boss, the White House counsel, Pat Cipollone. Joining me now, CNN senior crime and justice reporter Caitlin Polantz. So Caitlin, should we look at this as just complementary to the subpoena to Cipollone, or is there something specific and different that they might be looking for from Philbin?
Well, we don't actually know exactly what they're looking for at this point, but we should be looking at these together very least. I mean, these two men are people that were there in the crucial days of the Trump administration at the very end. And the one thing that they witnessed that we know of at this point, we don't know a lot about what Philbin himself witnessed. We haven't seen him a lot in the House Select Committee hearings, at least, although he did testify to them. They were there for that meeting on January 3rd, where Donald Trump wanted to replace the Attorney General. And they were part of the group that said, everyone's going to resign if you do that. You can't do that. We're not going to continue investigating election fraud. Get over it at this point. And so we know he was there for that. We also know, he is in that White House counsel's role with Pat Cipollone. They are extremely high-ranking people, well-respected people inside the White House giving advice. And so that's the sort of thing that the prosecutors are probably looking to nail down, both replicating what they said to the House and also fleshing out potentially other things that they weren't willing to say to the House, potentially things that they have claimed executive privilege on, Trump has claimed executive privilege on, and that we know the Justice Department may be trying to line up to get a court to say, no, we should have access to that in this grand jury
It's remarkable, because like just a month ago, that all the talk was, what's the DOJ up to? And now clearly there's something going on at the Justice Department. Okay, CNN has also learned the Secret Service is now may disable text messaging on employees' cell phones as it faces these ongoing deep questions about what happened to all those text messages around January 6th. What's the importance of that?
Yeah, it appears to really be a reaction to all of this interest now in what happened to their text messages, both at the Secret Service, and then we're also getting this other news that there are secretary-level people at DHS, same agency, where their text messages were deleted. But what we know now, my colleagues were able to report yesterday that the Secret Service Director, James Murray, he sent a memo on Tuesday, agency-wide, saying that they were considering temporarily suspending the use of these text messages while they can figure out how to retain them if there are gaps in their procedures, in their systems. Now, fully disabling texting for Secret Service, that could potentially be a problem that they don't want to bring about. That is a way that law enforcement communicates. So there is some indication they're going to make sure they don't shut off all avenues of communication for agents if they do that. But it is something they're looking into clearly when this retention is at issue for a lot of places.
Questions keep going deeper. Caitlin Polans, thanks so much. All right, joining me now to discuss, Ellie Honig, former Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. First, I got to ask you, Ellie, because you were a prosecutor, you've been involved in a lot of investigations. Have you ever seen so many records go missing, around a key date, and in this case from multiple agencies, Secret Service, DHS, and the Defense Department? Does that add up to you as coincidence or something deliberate?
No, Jim, it doesn't strike me as a coincidence. And no, I've never seen this type of mass record disappearance. It raises so many questions. And honestly, if this had happened while I was prosecuting a case, the case would have been dismissed. I mean, if I went in front of a judge and the defense lawyer said, we need to see the text between you as the prosecutor and the agents on the case, some of whom work for Secret Service, and I said, well, Judge, we lost them. We did a communications upgrade and they're gone. That case would have been thrown out of court. And I would have had some serious questions to answer. So I think there are major organizational questions. The fact that Secret Service is even contemplating suspending the use of text is really an embarrassment for Secret Service, but I think it says something. It's essentially like a parent saying, I no longer trust you with the keys to a car to a teenager, except Secret Service is saying, we no longer trust ourselves with the ability to send text messages. So I think that's how serious this situation has gotten.
Yeah, we got to remember, like DHS they prosecute cyber crime, right? I mean, they should be good at tracking this kind of stuff down. So the DHS IG now says, or told the Secret Service last month, I should say, his office was conducting a criminal investigation into the missing text messages. What exact laws would or could have been broken here?
Yeah, so I found that really interesting when it came out that there was potentially a criminal investigation, because if there is mass organizational incompetence, that's not going to be criminal. People may need to be fired. Congress may need to get involved. But when you see that there's potential criminality, that tells me that there was some intentionality about this, some decision made, hey, let's not preserve these because we may not want them to fall into certain hands, or even worse yet, let's delete them. Now, we don't know. We haven't seen concrete evidence that either of those things happened. But if they're looking at this criminally, Jim, then that's the kind of questions they're asking.
Okay, let's look then at Patrick Philbin, Deputy White House Counsel. Renato Mariotti made a point on the show yesterday that for him and for Cipollone, the grand jury situation different from January 6th, and that they can't claim as broad an executive privilege here to refuse to answer questions. I wonder, do you agree with that? I know it's going to go to court, so it's going to be fought out, but do you agree with that, and do you think they'll eventually be compelled to testify to some of those issues?
Well, I agree that grand jury subpoenas, criminal subpoenas, carry more weight than a congressional subpoena like you might see out of the committee. And courts do tend to give more deference to the criminal grand jury subpoena. But there still will be an executive privilege argument here. We saw Cipollone in front of the committee in his videotaped deposition a couple times. He said, I'm not going to answer that. I'm going to take I'm going to cite executive privilege. But it appears from our reporting that DOJ is not going to accept that. They're not going to accept his assertions of privilege, and they're going to go into courts. Now, the upside for DOJ is if they win, and I do think they will win. I agree with Renato that they have a stronger case to make in a criminal context, then they get those key conversations. The downside, of course, Jim, is delay. It takes time. Yeah. We've seen these court battles, and you have to include appeals, take months and months and months. So it's really incumbent, A, on DOJ to get in there quickly if they're going to have this fight, and B, on our courts, our judges. They can hear cases as quickly as they choose to do so. Yeah. If you get one of these cases and you're a federal judge, please put it at the top of your pile.
Is this the kind of thing that would go all the way to the Supreme Court to kind of give some guardrails around what exactly is executive privilege and how far it goes?
So it would start in a federal district court, which is the trial level. Whoever loses there essentially automatically gets to go up to the Court of Appeals, which is that intermediate court. And whoever loses there will almost certainly try to get it up to the Supreme Court. But of course, the Supreme Court doesn't have to hear anything they don't want to hear. But look, these are sort of novel questions of executive privilege. We don't have a lot of law on these things. So it might be of interest to the Supreme Court. But yeah, it'll be up to the court itself if they want to take it.
Elie Honig, always good to have you on.
Thanks, Jim.
Just minutes from now, jury deliberations will resume in the defamation trial against InfoWars host Alex Jones. Their verdict will determine how much the right-wing conspiracy theorist must pay two Sandy Hook parents for, quote, reckless lies he told denying the school shooting happened. The jury could deliver a decision today. Yesterday, we witnessed some just shocking, amazing moments in the courtroom when the plaintiff's attorney revealed that Jones's own lawyer had sent him the contents of his cell phone, including damning text messages by mistake, apparently. CNN senior media reporter Oliver Darcy joins me now. Oliver, man, I mean, it's incredible. And the moment when the lawyer, the parent's lawyer, revealed this to Jones on the stand was just unforgettable.
Yeah, Jim. It was something like you would see out of a movie, right? I mean, it was a shocking moment to happen and to watch in court. And I'd set it up for viewers by letting them know as well that Alex Jones is really not used to being in this kind of environment, right? When he is on his show, he is the one in charge. He's the master of his universe. It is produced by him. And so he is very out of his element in court, not able to control what's going to happen. And you can see it really on his face during this moment where the plaintiff's attorney reveals that they have obtained his cell phone records for the past 2 years.
Your attorney's messed up and sent me an entire digital copy of your entire cell phone with every text message you've sent for the past 2 years. And when informed, did not take any steps to identify it as privileged or protect it in any way. And as of 2 days ago, it fell free and clear into my possession. And that is how I know you lied to me when you said you didn't have text messages about Sandy Hook. Did you know that?
I told you the truth. This is your Perry Mason moment. I gave them my phone.
And after that moment, the attorney for the plaintiffs also was caught on a hot mic basically saying, wait until law enforcement gets a hold of this phone. Obviously, Alex Jones was at the Capitol on January 6th, so there might be some interest there. The jury is deliberating. They're expected to deliberate any moment now, and their verdict or their decision will determine how much Alex Jones ends up paying for these Sandy Hook lies. He's already been found liable for defamation and inflicting emotional distress, but now they're going to determine how much he exactly has to pay. The plaintiffs are asking for $150 million, Jim.
Yeah, we don't want it to get lost in this. He lied that Sandy Hook didn't happen and attacked the parents of some of those dead children. And that's how he's in court for this. Oliver Darcy, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Let's speak now to criminal defense attorney and CNN legal analyst Joey Jackson. Joey, you've been involved in a lot of trials. Have you ever seen, witnessed, heard of a defense attorney sharing a cell phone, the contents of a cell phone, including messages which it appears he lied about with the prosecution. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah. So, Jim, good morning to you. So what happens is that you have all kind of mistakes that happen in trial, but just put this in context. Before a trial happens, you don't have trial by ambush in this country. Both sides, whether it be a criminal or, as this trial is, a civil trial, there's a process of discovery. And in that process, both sides are allowed to make requests. So when you step into the courtroom, everyone should be conversant with the facts, the issues, the circumstances, the text message, the email, the surveillance. It should not be a surprise. So in this case, again, Jim, in context, those text messages were asked for, right? They were asked for a long time ago, and they were told that they didn't exist, that there are no such text messages relating to the issue of Sandy Hook communications at all. Bingo, it was a lie. Why? Because apparently in a mistake, those messages were sent to the attorneys, right, representing the family in error, indicating that not only, Jim, do text messages exist, but 2 years worth of text messages exist to different parties or regarding different circumstances concerning this case. So yes, mistakes happen where discovery is provided, right, maybe unwillingly or unknowingly, etc. But that should have been provided a long time ago and is a significant discovery violation to the extent that it wasn't.
Yeah.
It just so happened that their client, you see him there, Mr. Jones, was the recipient of being caught in a major lie saying they didn't exist. Guess what? They do. And he was found, right, to have fabricated on that issue.
Okay, so what's his legal exposure now for perjury? And I imagine, is the defense attorney also liable here because he knew about text messages that it seems to me they denied that they had?
So great questions, and here's the answer. What happens is that you have an obligation as it relates to perjury to tell the truth. Clearly, as it related to that issue and several other issues, he was found to be lying. Any witness can say, Jim, whatever they feel like saying, but when you are confronted with facts, with documents, with specifics, it's really hard to overcome that. And so, yes, in the event that a referral needed to be made with respect to him lying, that could be made. That's not it. Certainly, there's, where it comes to the attorneys, there are what's called sanctions. You have an obligation to turn over discovery. You knew it existed. You knew the requests were made for it. You failed to do so. And so the judge has a number of remedies, right? One of those remedies including sanctions and penalties, not only to Mr. Jones, but potentially the lawyers, right? There are significant things in terms of the bar, right, that you have to worry about. We have a license for a reason, and that certainly could be yanked, and there are consequences there too. So not good all the way around.
Okay, so consequences for this trial. We now know the January 6th committee interested in these text messages because they're examining Jones's role in plotting or inciting the January 6th attack. And to sort of add insult to injury for Jones, his ex-wife tweeted that she plans to subpoena those text messages. So what's the path forward for Jones after this revelation?
Yeah, so that's in the broader context, right? And great point, Jim. It's not only about this particular trial and the damages issue that the jury's assessing as to whether and what he should pay economically to the family. It's in the broader context of what's on that phone, what communications not only related to Sandy Hook, but related to January 6th or other criminality. Remember, there's a bankruptcy proceeding. He's trying to protect himself in the event the jury assesses an award. That gets you to the IRS and other financial people would have an interest in assessing his truthfulness, his tax returns, etc. So I think authorities, certainly as a result of the revelations in this trial to January 6th and to other issues, will be interested in evaluating and investigating and obviously holding him accountable if there's anything on that phone that speaks to the issue of criminality or other things potentially.
Joey Jackson, always good to have you on. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, this morning, negotiations within the Democratic Party over its budget bill may sound familiar. Here we are again. And a new tweet from President Biden appears to be a message for Senator Kyrsten Sinema, the lone Democratic holdout on that climate tax and health care bill. Sources tell CNN that Sinema wants to lose a carried interest tax provision in the bill. Politico first reported Sinema wants to lose that provision that would raise just a small fraction of the overall increased revenue. The real big increase will come from setting a corporate minimum tax rate of 15%. CNN's Melanie Zanona joins me live with latest developments. I mean, it seems, Melanie, that folks could live with getting rid of the carried interest thing. That's $15 billion, bill of many hundreds of billions of dollars here in tax revenue. Do we know where she stands on setting a corporate minimum tax here? Because in the past, she's expressed support for that.
Yeah. I mean, our colleagues, Manu Raju and Alex Rogers, reported that the business community has really been pressuring her over this corporate minimum tax of 15%. And we know that Sinema has aversions to some of these tax provisions. CNN has confirmed that she wants to eliminate the language that would narrow the so-called carried interest loophole, which would change the way some investment income is taxed. But Democratic leaders, including Dick Durbin this morning, aren't saying whether they're willing to make those changes, just continuing to express hope that eventually Sinema might come around. But the reality is Democrats might need to make some of these changes in order to get Sinema on board. And amid all this news about Sinema, President Joe Biden tweeted yesterday reiterating the importance of making corporations pay their fair share. He tweeted yesterday, "For far too long, big, super wealthy corporations haven't paid their fair share in taxes. We're going to change that with the Inflation Reduction Act." So, all eyes on Sinema right now. They absolutely need her vote, and time is running short here. And so the schedule and timing of all of this is still very much up in the air, Jim.
All right, just the saddest of stories yesterday. Indiana Republican Congresswoman Jackie Walorski and two of her young staffers killed in a car accident. Tell us reactions you're hearing on the Hill and how lawmakers are honoring them this morning.
Yeah, this has been an absolute tragedy, and it has completely stunned the Capitol Hill community. Jackie Walorski was a member of Congress since 2013. She was really close to GOP leadership and had multiple key committee assignments. And her two staffers were really young, and so this has really shocked and saddened the community up here, and the tributes are pouring in. House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy put out a statement referring to Walorski as a dear friend and a trusted advisor. Congresswoman Ann Wagner said the two of them were so close that they used to finish each other's sentences. And Indiana Senator Mike Braun said the news was like getting punched. And so it's been absolutely tragic up here. No word yet on the memorial services, but the flags at both the Capitol and the White House are flying at half-mast in her honor. Jim.
The staffers look like kids, so young. Melanie Zanona, thanks so much. Still ahead this hour. Could the